Hello, madam. My name is Muhammad Aiman Rahmat. Today, me and my roommate Marvin will be presenting and um, talking about the implementations of strategies. Our group will be talking about the first section, which is the strategic implementation challenge. Many organizations are excellent at developing visionary plans, bold objectives, and detailed roadmaps. But here's the challenge. Research shows that a large percentage of these strategies fail during the implementation phase. This is what we call the reality gap, the disconnect between strategy formulation and execution. So why does this exist? The answer is simple, because the execution is much harder than planning. It requires changing real behaviors, aligning resources, and making the strategy work in day-to-day operations. And that's where most companies struggle. So it's the reality gap. So, for an example, take Nokia. In the mid 2000s, they had a brilliant strategy by leveraging their strong brand and technology. On paper, the strategy made sense, but the execution faltered and failed because their structure was rigid. Their culture resisted change, and resources weren't directed towards smartphone innovation fast enough. It resulted in Apple and Samsung overtaking them, and um, this shows how strategy without effective execution is just wishful thinking. Okay, so next is why execution fails. Organizations often fail in execution because of three main reasons. The first one is structure, culture. Second one is culture, and the third one is resource allocation. And for this example, let's look at basically Starbucks expansion. On the flip side, Starbucks provides a positive example. When they expanded, the strategy was clear, sell more than just coffee, sell an experience. To execute, they aligned the structure by creating a regional divisions with local decision-making power. They fostered a culture of service and consistency worldwide, and they allocated resources, sorry, and they allocate resources towards training baristas and maintaining store ambiance. The results, strategy that didn't just stay on paper, but transformed into daily customer experience. So to close my part, um, wait, sorry again, madam. So to close my part, the reality gap is not about poor planning; it's about poor execution. So poor execution, bridging the gap, requires aligning structured cultures and its resources. But when it's lived out in the organization's daily operations, that's the heart of the strategy implementation challenge. That is all from me. I'll pass to Marvin to present or to talk about section 1.2 and 1.3. Thank you very much, Madam.
Good evening, madam. My name is Marvin, and today I'll be discussing about the causes of implementation failure and the importance of closing the strategy execution gap. So I'll begin with causes of implementation failure. Uh, the causes of implementation failure, I have narrowed them down to three main reasons. One, structural problems in terms of confusing hierarchy and unclear roles. Two, cultural misalignment in terms of what people are willing to accept based on old habits and the status quo. And then resource gaps in terms of whether the resources available are sufficient to meet up with the standards for the goals of implementation. Specifically on structural problems, this can be in terms of over centralization of the authority, in terms of, let's say, a massive bank like Maybank. though has several branches, can only make final decisions in the main HQ. This would be very bad for strategy implementation, as to spend a lot of time for the main HQ to go through all this information to make decisions. Then too many layers. This is in terms of in terms of bureaucracy. This slows down the process greatly because even small decisions take long to be made, as they have to go through several iterations, several approvals before they actually go through. This wastes a lot of time. Then also no clear reporting lines in terms of no clear access to the main decision makers. So there can be problems and teams can detect them, but they may be unable to communicate this to the mainline and adjust due to no clear reporting lines. Then in terms of cultural misalignment, this is more in a case of there's a way people have been doing things for multiple years, and suddenly a new change comes. This may be better, but people are resistant to their old ways and would prefer to maintain. For example, a bank that wishes to implement digital banking, but its employees have been using manual banking, like papers for bookkeeping, and are not willing to change as they feel their old method is better. This is very detrimental to strategy implementation. This can also be manifested in the leadership who are unwilling to take up new strategies due to rigidity and pride in these obsolete methods. Then for resource allocation, this one is to do with when there is a scenario of having insufficient resources to meet up with the demands for the strategy implementation. So if a company plans to open up, let's say, 2 new branches in the next 5 years, but only has sufficient funds to open up one, then there is a gap due to the resources available. So this has to be resolved before they can move forward with the strategy implementation. Then in terms of closing the strategy execution gap, this the main thing we can take away from here is this refers to the gap between the plans made and the actual results due to those plans being implemented. This is basically what turns the vision into the reality. So in terms of why it matters, it's very important for performance and competitiveness. As more companies adopt new strategies, new companies have to adopt in order to keep competitive and relevant in the evolving marketplace. Then engages employees and builds accountability, as this will see who is more adaptable among the employees and who best can apply these new methods for the system. Also, it ensures efficient utilization of resources, as these modern methods often are more efficient in, let's say, calculating the resources and how best to allocate them. Finally, it strengthens long-term sustainability, as many of these methods are, due to being digital, are better for the environment, not the environment, but also competitively enable the company to have a much longer period of life as they're able to maintain a competitive nature. That's all from me, madam. Thank you.